This week on Inside Travel Talk, we break down big changes coming to airport security, a major upgrade to in-flight Wi-Fi, and what new airline fares types mean for travelers. Then we dive into one of the ultimate bucket list trips, African safaris, and help you decide between Kenya and South Africa. Plus, cruise news, luxury ship-within-a-ship experiences, and a deep dive into expedition cruising to places like Antarctica.
The Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, contains travel deals, promotions, and offers that may be time-sensitive. All offers and information were accurate when the show aired. Travel deals and offers change constantly and are capacity-controlled and subject to change without notice.
Explore your world. It's the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Call or text the show now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700, and check out the podcast at InsideTravelTalk.com.
Welcome to the Inside Travel Talk podcast. I'm Justin, and I'm glad you're here with us today. This is the show where we help you plan and book your next vacation, or at the very least, give you some great ideas that get you thinking about where to go next. Whether you're dreaming about a bucket list trip, looking for the best travel deals, or just want to stay up to date on what's happening in the travel world, you're in the right place. And of course, this show is brought to you by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. If you're planning a trip, or even just thinking about it, they're the team that can help you do it right. Mark is here with me as always. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great.
All right, let's jump into travel news this week. So, first story, this one's interesting and honestly a little controversial. There's talk about whether issues with the Transportation Security Administration during the government shutdown could lead to more private airport security.
Yeah, and this is something that comes up every time there's a government shutdown or disruption. People start asking, why is airport security tied to that in the first place? Because here's the thing, and most travelers don't realize this, you're already paying for TSA every time you fly. There's a fee. It's called the September 11th security fee. It's $5.60 each way, capped at $11.20 round trip. So, in my opinion, this should not even be part of a government shutdown conversation. Travelers are literally funding it directly with that fee.
Yeah, that's actually kind of surprising. I didn't know it was structured that way.
Most people don't, and that's where this conversation gets interesting. There's already a program called the Screening Partnership Program, SPP, that allows private companies to handle airport security instead of federal TSA agents. And guess what? It's working really well in places like San Francisco and Kansas City. Airports that use the SPP are regulated and administered by the TSA, but all of the screeners are private contracted employees.
And I saw something about efficiency too.
Some studies suggest private screeners can be up to 65% more efficient. That means shorter lines, faster processing, and a better passenger experience. And there's also an argument for cost savings. Some reports suggest up to 40% savings in the cost of airport screening, although that part gets debated.
So why isn't everyone doing this?
That's the big question. It's partly political, partly operational, and honestly, partly inertia. But from a traveler standpoint, anything that makes security smoother is a win. Because let's be honest, security is the most stressful part of flying for most people.
Yeah. Nobody enjoys that part of the trip.
Exactly. So if this leads to innovation, better service, and shorter lines, I think it's a good thing.
Next story, and this one actually hits something every traveler cares about, in-flight Wi-Fi. So Delta Airlines is partnering with Amazon, specifically their low Earth orbit satellite network, to roll out a new generation of high-speed, low-latency internet on board their aircraft.
And this is a big deal. This isn't just better Wi-Fi. This is a complete shift in how connectivity works in the air. Traditionally, airplane Wi-Fi has relied on either ground-based towers or higher orbit satellites. And the problem with those is latency. There's a delay. That's why sometimes it feels slow or laggy, even when it technically works.
Yeah, like when you try to send a message and it just spins.
Or streaming movies is impossible. What Delta is moving toward is LEO, low Earth orbit satellites. These satellites are much closer to the Earth, which means dramatically lower latency and much faster speeds.
So, what does that actually mean for someone sitting on a plane?
It means your internet experience is going to feel much closer to what you have at home. You'll be able to stream, browse, send messages, even work in real time without that lag. And for a lot of travelers, especially business travelers, that's huge. And Delta has already been leading the way on in-flight internet. They've been rolling out free Wi-Fi on most flights, and this is the next step, making it fast enough that people actually want to use it.
All right, last news story. United Airlines is introducing new tiered fare categories across all tickets.
Yeah. And this is basically airlines continuing to unbundle everything. We've already seen basic economy, economy premium, economy plus, and now they are including premium cabins like first class. They're refining those tiers even more.
So, more choices?
More choices, but also more complexity. You really have to pay attention to what you're buying now. Things like seat selection or the ability to choose seats, carry-ons, changes. They all vary by fare, even in the premium cabins like first class.
So this is where working with an advisor helps again?
Absolutely. We help clients understand what they're actually getting and avoid those surprises at the airport. Many customers that purchase online don't really know what they are purchasing because they are just looking at the price. I can foresee an issue if some purchases first class where they don't realize that they don't get a seat until they check in, or in some cases until they board the flight. They don't realize that they don't get that first class meal and wonder why everyone around them is getting a meal. It can cause an issue if you don't understand what you purchased.
All right, let's get into the main topic. Michael called in and wants to know, Kenya or South Africa for a safari?
Great question. And honestly, this is one of my favorite topics. Both are incredible, but they're very different experiences. South Africa is what I call a well-rounded safari. You're not just going for wildlife, you're getting culture, cities, history, and scenery. You usually start in Cape Town, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You've got Table Mountain, the coastline, the food scene. It's incredible. Then you move into safari, typically Kruger National Park, and that's where you'll see the big five: lion, leopard, elephant, rhino, buffalo.
And this itinerary is packed.
It really is. You've got game drives, luxury tent camps, cultural experience, and then one of the biggest highlights, Victoria Falls. That's something Kenya doesn't have.
That alone feels like a huge selling point.
It really is. And Victoria Falls isn't just something you see, it's something you feel. You hear it before you ever get there, this deep roar in the distance. Then you get closer, and there's this mist rising up into the sky, almost like a cloud. When you're standing there, you can feel the power of it. It's one of those places that just stops you for a minute. It's that impressive. But if you ask me personally, I prefer Kenya.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, and it comes down to wildlife. Kenya just has better wildlife viewing. It's more raw, more authentic, more safari.
What makes it different?
The landscapes, the density of animals, and most importantly, the Great Migration. Every year, millions of wildebeest and zebras move across the Serengeti ecosystem into the Masai Mara. And when they cross the Mara River, it's one of the most dramatic wildlife events on the planet. You've got crocodiles in the water, predators waiting on the other side. It's nature at its most intense.
That sounds unreal.
It really is. And if you time it right, late July through mid-September, you can witness the Great Migration. And the Kenya itinerary is incredible. You start in Nairobi, then head to Samburu, where you see unique animals like Grevy's zebra and Gerenuk. Then Sweetwater's great for rhinos, and then the Masai Mara, which is just unbelievable.
And you're doing multiple game drives a day?
Yep. Early morning, afternoon, and evening game viewing. Morning and evening is when animals are most active. You'll see lions, elephants, cheetahs, giraffes, and honestly, sometimes more animals than you can count.
Is there a highlight for you in Kenya?
Yeah. And one of my favorite moments on a Kenya safari, and this is something people don't expect, is what they call a hippo breakfast. You'll head out early in the morning, usually along the Mara River, and they'll set up breakfast right there in the bush overlooking a hippo pool. And I mean, you're literally sitting there with fresh juice, and just a short distance away, you can hear the hippos in the water, grunting, splashing, just doing their thing. It's surreal. You've got chefs cooking a full breakfast right there under the trees, and you're surrounded by wildlife in every direction. And what makes it so special is it's not staged, it's real. You're in their environment. You might see birds flying overhead, maybe elephants off in the distance. And all the while, you're just sitting there thinking, this is not something you can replicate anywhere else in the world. That's one of those moments where you just kind of pause and take it all in because it's such a unique part of the safari experience.
So if someone's listening and thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, how does it actually work? Are you traveling with a group, or can you do this privately?
You can do this as a small group, 12 to 20 people, or fully private. Private is more expensive, but it's customized to you. Also, most safari vehicles hold 6 to 8 people, but some companies only put 4 people per vehicle. So whether you're traveling with a group or privately, you're still in an individual vehicle with 4 to 8 people. It's not a bus tour.
So bottom line, how do you choose South Africa or Kenya?
If you want a well-rounded trip with cities, culture, and iconic sites, South Africa. If you want the best wildlife experience in the world, Kenya.
All right, travel deal of the week.
Safari deals. Right now you can save up to $500 per reservation on small group departures, or up to $1,000 per reservation on private safaris.
That's a big deal for a trip like this.
It really is. And what makes a safari so special is that it pulls you completely out of your normal world. You're not just observing, you're part of the environment. You wake up before sunrise, head out into the bush, and there's this quiet anticipation because you don't know what you're going to see that day. And then suddenly you're watching a herd of elephants move past you, or you're sitting there as a lion pride rests just a few yards away. It's real, it's raw, and it's completely different than anything else. Then you go back to your lodge, relax for a bit, and head out again later in the day. And every single drive is different. That unpredictability is what makes it so exciting. And at the end of the day, you're sitting out under the stars thinking, this is something I'll never forget.
All right, coming up in segment 2, cruise news and expedition cruises. One of the most unique ways to travel in the world.
They've literally traveled millions of miles to answer your travel-related questions. Yeah, they really have. You're listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. We'll be right back.
Inside Travel Talk is brought to you by AMA Waterways. From castles and capitals to vistas and villages, visit some of Europe's most remarkable sites and cities. To set out on your own river cruise journey, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or BluePlanetVacations.com.
This is the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com, America's best travel advisors. Call or text the show right now, 801-649-3700, 801-649-3700. And now, here are your hosts.
All right, welcome back to segment 2 of Inside Travel Talk. We've got cruise news, and then we're going to talk about expedition cruises, one of the most unique travel experiences out there. Okay, first cruise news story. MSC Cruises is redeploying one of their largest ships to the Caribbean.
Yeah, and this really comes down to demand The Caribbean is still the strongest cruise market, especially for North American travelers. It's easy to get to. There are lots of departure ports, and cruises run year-round. So when demand is high, cruise lines move their newest and biggest ships there. The world Europe will be moving from cruises in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East to the Caribbean. The interesting part of this story is the home port. It will be doing Southern Caribbean cruises departing from Barbados and Martinique.
So they're putting their best product where it'll get the most attention.
And it's also about competition. You've got Royal Caribbean, Norwegian Cruise Line, and Carnival Cruise Line all investing heavily in the Caribbean. So MSC wants to compete right alongside them.
What does that mean for travelers?
Better ships and often better pricing. MSC tends to be very competitive, so you can get a newer ship with great amenities for a really good value. And with the unique itineraries in the Southern Caribbean, it gives you a choice of a different itinerary compared to what others are offering.
So overall, good news if you're planning a Caribbean cruise.
Absolutely.
All right, next story. Let's talk about the Haven on Norwegian Cruise Line. I keep hearing about this. It sounds like a completely different experience on board.
It really is. And honestly, the Haven is one of my favorite things happening in cruising right now. I have been lucky to be able to cruise in the Haven category several times on Norwegian Cruise Line. The easiest way to describe it is it's a ship within a ship. You get all the benefits of a large cruise ship, but then you've got this private, more exclusive area that feels like a luxury boutique hotel.
So what actually makes it different from just booking a nicer cabin?
Yeah, that's the key question. It's not just the room, it's the entire experience. The Haven is a keyed access area where you've got private spaces. There's a Haven-only restaurant, pool, sun deck, and lounge areas. So you're not dealing with the crowds you typically get on a big ship. Second, there's priority everything. You get priority embarkation, priority disembarkation, priority tendering. It just makes the whole experience smoother from start to finish.
That alone sounds worth it.
It really makes a difference. And then you get into the service level. You've got butler and concierge service, which is something you don't get in standard cabins. They'll handle dining reservations, excursions, even unpacking if you want. It's very personalized.
That's a big step up.
It is. And then there are the accommodations themselves. The Haven suites are larger, better designed, and just more comfortable overall. Some of them are absolutely incredible. Multi-bedroom suites, huge balconies. It's a completely different level.
And I've heard the dining is a big part of it too.
It is. And this is where I always get a little passionate about it. There's a private Haven restaurant that's only for Haven guests. It's quiet, it's high quality, and the service is outstanding. And I'll just say this. They have the best French dip sandwich I've ever had. No question. I've had it multiple times and I still think about it.
That's high praise.
It is, but it's also about the consistency. You can go there anytime and you know you're going to get a great meal without waiting or dealing with crowds.
So it sounds like you get the big ship experience, but without the chaos.
That's exactly it. You still have access to all the entertainment, all the dining venues, all the activities. But when you want to step away, you've got your own private space. And we're seeing more cruise lines adopt this concept. MSC has the Yacht Club. Celebrity has the Retreat. It's becoming one of the biggest trends in cruising.
So who is this really for?
It's perfect for someone who wants the variety of a big ship, but also values space, service, and a more relaxed experience. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
All right. Rebecca texted in. She wants to do something unique and asked about expedition cruises.
Great question. Expedition cruises are all about exploration. They go to places big ships can't: Antarctica, the Arctic, Galapagos, remote Alaska.
So what makes them different?
Yeah. So with expedition cruises, everything is built around the experience. You're on much smaller ships, usually anywhere from 100 to maybe 400 guests, so they can go places the big ships simply can't. And instead of just having cruise staff, you've got expert guides on board, naturalists, historians, scientists, people who really understand the destinations. They're giving talks, going out on excursions with you, helping you spot wildlife, explaining what you're seeing. So it becomes much more educational and engaging. And then it's the immersive part that really makes it special. You're not just pulling into a port, walking around for a few hours and leaving. You're getting off the ship in Zodiac boats, landing in remote places, hiking, kayaking, sometimes even doing things like ice walks in polar regions. So yeah, it's a completely different mindset. You're not just visiting a destination, you're actually exploring it, experiencing it, and learning about it in a much deeper way.
What is the most popular expedition cruise?
Antarctica is the most popular. You fly to South America, cross the Drake Passage, and then spend days exploring. You'll see glaciers, penguins, whales, and landscapes that feel untouched.
That sounds like a once-in-a-lifetime trip.
It absolutely is.
What expedition cruise lines do you recommend?
When it comes to expedition cruising, there are a few companies that really stand out. These aren't your typical cruise lines. They specialize in exploration, and each one has its own personality and strengths. The first one I recommend is HX Expeditions. These guys have been doing expedition travel for a long time, over 100 years, if you go back to their roots in Norway. So they really know what they're doing. What I like about HX is that they focus heavily on the science and learning side of the experience. They've got onboard science centers, guest lectures, and real working researchers on some sailings. So if you're someone who wants to understand what you're seeing, not just look at it, this is a great option. They also include a lot in their pricing. Things like excursions, gear, even some drinks are included, which makes it a little more all-inclusive than some other line.
So that's more of the educational, immersive experience.
Yes. Now the second one is Lindblad Expeditions, and they partner with National Geographic. And this is where it gets really interesting because you've got National Geographic photographers, scientists, and explorers on board. So you're getting this storytelling element that's really unique. They're phenomenal for destinations like the Galapagos, Alaska, and Antarctica. And if you're someone who loves photography or wants that deeper connection to the destination, this is probably the best choice. They also tend to have a slightly more polished, upscale feel without losing that expedition focus.
That sounds like the one where you come home with incredible photos.
Exactly. And a lot more knowledge than you expected. Now, the third one is Quark Expeditions. Quark are the polar specialists. If your dream is Antarctica or the Arctic, Quark is one of the best in the business. They're very adventure focused. So you're not just observing, you're participating. They offer things like kayaking, hiking, even camping on the ice in Antarctica on select trips. They also have some of the most specialized ships for polar travel, including icebreakers, which allow them to go deeper into those regions than many other companies.
So that's more for someone who wants that true expedition, almost once in a lifetime kind of adventure.
Exactly. It's a little more rugged, a little more adventurous, but incredibly rewarding.
So if you had to sum it up, how would you match the traveler to each one?
I'd say it this way. HX is great for someone who wants a well-rounded, immersive experience with strong educational elements and good value. Lindblad is perfect for someone who wants that National Geographic level storytelling, photography, and deeper connection to the destination. And Quark is for the true adventurer, someone who wants to go further, do more, and really experience those remote polar regions in a hands-on way.
That's a great breakdown.
And honestly, you can't go wrong with any of them. It just depends on what kind of experience you're looking for.
All right. Cruise deal of the week. And this one is really unique.
This is a great one, especially if you've ever thought about doing an expedition cruise. HX Expeditions is celebrating their 130th anniversary, and they've rolled out some really strong offers for 2026 and 2027 sailings. First, you've got up to 35% off select expeditions, and that's across some of the most bucket list destinations in the world. Antarctica, the Galapagos, Greenland, even places like the Arctic and Norway.
That's a pretty big discount for a trip like this.
It is, and here's where it gets even better. On select Antarctica sailings, they're offering a free upgrade to a suite. So you're paying for a standard cabin and getting a much higher end experience, larger space, private balcony, upgraded amenities.
That's a big jump in experience.
It really is. And what I like about HX is that these are all-inclusive expedition cruises. So when you look at the value, it's not just the cruise. You've got your excursions included, your meals, drinks, all those guided experiences we talked about earlier. They're part of the package.
So you're not getting nickel and dimed once you're on board.
And that's important with expedition cruising because the experiences are the whole point. And one more thing I think is really interesting because this is their 130th anniversary. They're adding special onboard experience, lectures, and even some unique historical elements tied back to their roots in exploration.
So it's not just a deal, it's kind of a special year to go.
That's exactly it. If you've ever thought about doing Antarctica, Greenland, or one of these remote destinations, 2026 is a really good time to do it. You're getting better pricing, potential upgrades, and a little bit of that anniversary experience layered on top.
So bottom line, this is one of those bucket list meets good timing kind of deals.
And those don't come around all the time.
All right, let's wrap it up. We covered TSA changes, Delta's future tech, safari destinations, cruise trends, and expedition travel. If something sparks your interest, now's the time to start planning.
And as always, if you need help, go to blueplanetvacations.com.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. And I'll leave you with this. Travel isn't always about where you go. It's about how it changes you. We'll see you next time.
That's it. That's the end of the show. You've been listening to the Inside Travel Talk podcast and radio show, presented by BluePlanetVacations.com. Book your adventure right now. Call 888-718-7717. That's 888-718-7717. Thanks for listening. Have a great week.
This segment of Inside Travel Talk is sponsored by Star Clippers. For over 30 years, Star Clippers has offered unique, authentic tall ship sailing experiences featuring creative itineraries throughout the Mediterranean, Caribbean, and Central America. To book your unique Star Clipper sailing adventure, contact Blue Planet Vacations at 888-718-7717 or blueplanetvacations.com.